promised, we're going to give you a little tutorial on making the perfect pie crust today. So Amanda's going to be my pupil, although she really already knows how to do it. So we start out with 2 cups of flour, which we've already put in our bowls, and a teaspoon of salt. And to that we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of butter. Now you want to make sure that your ingredients are cold, so the butter just came out of the refrigerator and actually some of it came out of the freezer. We cube it up and then that goes into your flour. And then you want to cut your butter into your flour using a pastry cutter. A little twisting of the wrist. And what we're shooting for are sort of pea-size balls of flour-covered butter. It's a war zone in there. And we've already prepared what's going to go inside of our pie shells. We're making today a chicken pot pie, which is what my hubby from Pittsburgh calls chicken pot pie, and that would be chicken pie in a crust. However, me being from Pennsylvania Dutch country, chicken pot pie to me is like chicken and gravy with noodles. However, today we're putting it in a pie. No noodles, pie crust. Okay, mine's ready. See how grainy it is? There's still clumps of butter, which is what's going to give you the flakiness of the crust. Now, to this we're going to add spoonfuls of water until it's the right consistency. The most important part of making your pie crust is using ice water. So we make this ahead of time. We got a bigger spoon. We're going to add this to our flour by the spoonful. So I'm starting with about 5 tablespoons. Mix that in. You want your dough to be just wet enough that it sticks together, but not too wet. And the reason that we're using ice cold water is to keep our butter from melting. The last thing you want is melted butter because you won't get a flaky pie crust with melted butter. Let me get you some more water. Thanks. We have to choreograph this. Mine still needs more water, so throw. And it's not an exact science. You just sort of do it by how it feels. If you add too much water and it gets a little bit wet, you're going to make up the difference when you roll it out with the flour on your surface that you roll it on. So it's not exact. Another thing when you make pie crust is you don't want to work your dough real hard. You want it to stick together, but you don't want to knead it like you would when you're making bread. So mine is just about the right consistency. It's starting to stick together. I'm going to try to get the rest of this flour mixed in, so I'll add just a tiny bit more water to take up that little bit of flour. And I should be able, yep, it's sticking together nicely. Oh, the oven's ready. Okay, we're making a 2-crust pie, so I'm going to divide my dough in half. Roll out our crust-worthy here. It's always good to have a pastry cloth of some sort. Under the pastry cloth, we'll put some flour so that the pie crust doesn't stick. Oh, you know what we need is rolling pins.
I got it.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to take half of that, make it into a nice ball, and roll it out nice and flat and round. You can still see some chunks of butter in this, which is fine. Oh, and on the subject of butter, I don't use any hydrogenated fats, so we don't use Crisco. So I would suggest you either use butter or lard for your pie crust. I don't use lard personally. I just have never acquired a taste or have never really even used it, so I use all butter. Our other fat that we use when we cook is olive oil.
You see the butter inside there.
Yeah. Okay, now our pie crust is ready to go into our pie pan. A little stuck there. Okay. Nope, needs to be just a little bit bigger. Roll the edges out a little harder. That should do it. Okay, at this point we're ready to fill our bottom pie crust, and then we'll make our top to go on top of it. Set this off to the side. And I have our chicken and vegetables and sauce made ahead of time. That's going to go in. That smells good. Okay, thank you. Great. Okay, our second top crust goes on next. More flour. Top crust doesn't have to be quite as large as the bottom crust, because it's just going to cover the top.
Oh, that smells yummy.
Can you smell it? I'm not having very good luck making a round crust today. It's turning out like every shape but round. Amanda, could you grab me a sharp knife? Okay, good to go. I'm going to lay this across the top.
Big or small?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's great. Get this out of the way. Okay, now I cut the excess crust off on the outside. I can remember as a child, my grandmother making pies like this. When she'd cut this excess crust off, she'd give it to me, and I'd make it into another big ball, and we'd roll it out, and then we'd make a milk custard pie in a little tiny pie pan. Fun memories. Okay, and that's our excess. Now what we're going to do is take those two pie crusts and lift them off the side and fold them both over. Okay, so you're basically folding the top crust down over the side including the bottom crust with it. We want enough of it sticking up over the edge so we can flute it. Just folding those two crusts down together. Wardrobe malfunction. Okay, and now we're going to flute the edge. There's lots of different ways you can flute. You can pinch it. What I found to be one of the prettiest is to take one finger and push in while the other two pull out. And then push in there. And push in. Push in. We didn't have quite enough there. I'm usually a little more generous with my pie crust and bring it up to the very edge of the pie. And I'm not quite, I was a little bit deficient, but it'll work. And there you have a nicely fluted crust. And to stick in the oven, we need to poke a little hole for steam to come through. You can get fancy if you want, but for our purposes, not going to be fancy, and this goes right into the oven. Okay, Amanda, it's your turn.
I'll do it without the camera.
Without the camera?
Yeah! I'm not as good as her.
Yeah, you are. Okay.